All right, so we're about to dive into a wrestling mystery that has honestly stumped fans for years. But here's the kicker. The real clue? It's not in a wrestling ring. Nope. It actually starts on an internet forum and takes us way back to the smoke-filled boxing arenas of the past. You're not going to believe this.
So here's how we're going to crack this thing. First, we'll lay out the mystery itself. Then, we're going to jump in a time machine, basically, and head back to the wild days of traveling carnivals. From there, we'll uncover this kind of secret playbook, and you'll see how boxing literally created the blueprint for modern wrestling. And by the end, trust me, we'll have our answer. And it all boils down to this one kind of forgotten word, ballyhoo.
Okay, let's get right into it. At the very heart of the WWE empire, there's this origin story, right? But it turns out, when you start digging, the details are, well, they're a lot murkier than you'd think. And this whole thing kicks off, as so many modern rabbit holes do, on Reddit. A user over on the big wrestling community, Squared Circle, was doing a deep dive and noticed something weird about the history of the Capital Wrestling Corporation. You know, the company that eventually became the WWE. It turns out not even Wikipedia can get its story straight on a super basic fact. Who actually founded the thing?
And that really is the central question for us today. Was it the family patriarch, Jess McMahon? Or was it his son, the one we now call Vince McMahon Sr.? You look it up and you'll find different answers all over the place. So to find the real story, we have to look somewhere you would never, ever expect.
And here's the big twist in our story. That legendary McMahon playbook, it wasn't actually invented by them. Not even close. It was inherited. And to really understand where it came from, we've got to step out of the wrestling world entirely and into the boxing ring.
All right, so let's travel back in time. We're heading to the late 19th and early 20th centuries. This was a time when the line between what was considered sport and what was pure spectacle was, well, it was basically non-existent.
You see, long before boxing became this high-class, big-money sport, it was basically part of the circus. They had these traveling boxing carnivals. And you got to picture it. It was basically vaudeville, but with punches. Boxers back then weren't seen as elite athletes. They were treated more like outcasts, almost like gypsy entertainers on the fringe of society.
Yeah, just picture this for a second. A carnival rolls into your town, but the main attraction isn't some guy on a tightrope. It's a massive touring strongman who gets in the ring and challenges any local tough guy to a fight for a cash prize. It wasn't really about the sport of it all. It was pure spectacle. It was a show.
And look, this idea of turning combat into entertainment, it is anything but new. I mean, the Romans absolutely perfected it with gladiators in the Colosseum. So the blueprint for turning a brutal fight into a massive public spectacle, that's literally thousands of years old.
But how do you go from a chaotic carnival act to a multi-million-dollar global industry? Well, the rulebook for that? It wasn't just written by studying success. In fact, it was written by watching some truly spectacular, epic failures.
So let's meet two promoters from Texas. First, you've got this guy, Dan Stewart. He was a gambler, had huge dreams, but he had a long list of failures. And then there was Tex Rickard. And Tex was smart. He watched all of Stewart's mistakes and basically created the modern promoter's playbook by doing the exact opposite of everything Stewart did.
I mean, Stewart's story is almost like a comedy of errors. He tried to stage this massive carnival of champions in Texas, but then the governor banned it. So he moves it to Arkansas. Banned again. He finally holds the event on a sandbar in the middle of the Rio Grande just to dodge the Texas Rangers. But after all that, the fight itself was a one-round dud, and to top it all off, it was a cloudy day which completely ruined the film footage he was counting on to make a profit. What a disaster.
So Tex Rickard saw all that and learned. His formula was actually pretty simple, but it was revolutionary for the time. First, find a legal town that actually wants the fight. 2. Create compelling characters. You need your heroes and your villains. 3. Offer a massive prize purse to get the newspapers buzzing. 4. You have to master the art of ballyhoo, what we just call media hype. And finally, 5. You give the fighters a piece of the action, especially from the film rights, to keep them happy. That's the formula.
And it all comes down to this one piece of advice, given by the legendary manager Jim Brady. He said, "Young men, just remember that you must be a showman every minute." And that sums it all up, right? This wasn't just about organizing a fight. It was about being a showman. It was about creating an event, something that felt way bigger than just the sport itself. So what in the world does a slick-talking boxing promoter from the turn of the century have to do with the McMahons and the WWE? The answer is everything. This playbook we've been talking about, it's the missing link. It's the secret ingredient.
You can actually draw a straight line through history here. It starts with the raw chaos of the circus. That evolves into Tex Rickard's organized, media-savvy spectacle. He's the one who perfected the hype, the drama, the good guys and bad guys. And then the McMahons come along, take that exact blueprint and apply it to the world of wrestling.
Just think about it for a second. Creating these larger-than-life characters, right? Like the all-American hero Jack Dempsey versus the foreign villain George Carpentier. Using the media to build up a huge story. Making an event like WrestleMania feel more important than any single match on the card. All of it, it's pulled straight from Tex Rickard's playbook back in the 1910s and 20s. It's the same exact strategy.
Okay, so now with all of this history in our back pocket, we can finally go back and answer that original question from that wrestling fan on Reddit.
So, let's get back to it. Who really founded the Capital Wrestling Corporation? Was it Jess McMahon or was it his son, Vincent J. McMahon? After everything we've just uncovered, the answer starts to look a whole lot different.
Because the answer, it isn't a person, it's an idea. The real founder was ballyhoo. That's the secret. This art of extravagant publicity, of over-the-top fuss, of masterful showmanship that turns a simple contest into a massive cultural event, that is the true foundation that the entire McMahon empire was built on. Look, Jess and Vincent J. McMahon were absolutely brilliant, no question. But their true genius wasn't necessarily in invention. It was in being the brilliant heirs to a playbook that was written decades before they even came along, in the dusty, smoky rings of the old boxing carnivals.
And that really leaves us with one final thought, right? Once you see this pattern, this formula of creating heroes, villains, and all of this ballyhoo, you start seeing it absolutely everywhere. So, how much of the modern world, from reality TV to blockbuster movies, is still running on this 100-year-old blueprint for creating hype? You'll be surprised.